Are you recording? Okay. Hello everyone, my name is Joy Harrell and my dad's behind the camera, Michael Harrell. We're going to be talking about the open adoption versus closed adoption. I want to adopt a child soon and I want to know which way to go. And we're going to talk about that, the pros and cons of both. And my references are the Adoption Learning Partners and the book by Laura Holden, The Open-Hearted Way to Open Adoption, Helping Your Child Grow Up Whole. And I was thinking about an open adoption, but my dad, you gonna talk?
Okay, in an open adoption, what do you see the advantages of an open adoption?
Well, the child will know their birth parents. They won't have any questions about them, not like a closed adoption. And will know the medical history. And you have more people to love your child, which I know there's ifs and stuff about that, but...
Well, my question about that is, especially for a younger child or whatever growing up, will they actually know who to mind or behave when they're being disciplined? Who's going to be doing the discipline? Is someone going to counteract that discipline, like the birth parents, not like what you do, or this and that? I mean, wouldn't that be kind of confusing to the child itself?
There's different levels of open adoption. They can be fully in the child's life, or you can set limits and stuff.
Well, even with limits, they're still going to know, what's going on, and know that they're, you're not their original parents. Even as a young child growing up, you're not their birth parent, and the birth parent seems like would have more authority over that child than you would, in the sense that they're the child would know that they're the ones that gave birth to them. Wouldn't that, in my way of thinking, wouldn't that possibly create a problem?
It could some, but I don't think it would in the complete long run.
Okay. Well, in the case of a closed adoption, of course, the birth parents aren't known, and the child really everything's closed as far as the book on who the birth parents is. You probably still got, in some sense, a family history from that closed adoption file. Not necessarily the names and everything, but as far as medical history for that child to go by, you're still going to have that. But wouldn't that, in a sense, be better? That way you're not confusing a child growing up. To that child, you're his parents. It's going to grow up knowing you're his parent. And if you're raising that child from birth, you are his parents, basically. It doesn't matter whether you're the birth parents or not. You're the one that's giving that child love. You're the one that's doing everything. Wouldn't that, in my way of thinking, wouldn't that actually be the better way to go instead of an open adoption?
It could be, but in some cases you don't have the medical history.
Well, that's possible. That's, an older child, I can see that. That's maybe gone through different foster homes, maybe been in just different places from here and there and bounced around. You that may be lost and not have past family history, but I'm not really sure that is something that's necessary to know anyway. I know in my case, I know my parents, their family history and all that, and know it all, but still that doesn't mean I have the same problems they've got, or I'm going to react to everything the same way they do. So really and truly, is family medical history that important?
No and yes, but it is a little bit, maybe.
It could possibly be in some cases, but not in all, I don't think. Now, going back to the open adoption, the child's going to grow up knowing that it was adopted, but basically from the first time it can start remembering things and going from there, from actually ages around 2-3-year-old. I know I remember things that happened to me back at that age. Not a lot, but a little. I would think that in a sense, your authority over that child, or your taking care of that child, and what you're doing is sort of minimized in a sense, with it knowing that you're not the person that gave birth, that this other person that comes and saying was the person that gave birth. But then again, it could go the other way around too. You could receive more love and more respect from that child than the actual birth parents. I don't know. It's just something to look at and something to go over. You may want to consider it more in the things you do, and may want to research a little bit more and maybe talk to a few more people that maybe have had it done. What do you think?
I've only read the one book, and on the Adoption Learning Center, they was mostly talking about the closed adoptions and stuff, and how the child, the brain development, and the treatments that they might need and stuff. Which I know all adopted children do not need treatment and stuff, but there are some that do, and the faster you get them treatment, the better it is.
Well, that's possibly true, but then again, why should that be actually a factor in adopting a child? It's really not necessary to know all the medical history of a child. I mean, any medical problems that may arise or may come up, sure, it's nice to know, but in some cases, for some situations, will be good to know. But if you're adopting this child at birth or within his first year of birth, there's a good chance that you're going to have access to that family medical history, not necessarily the names of the parents, but you would probably have access to medical history. And I think that's what you're wanting to do, is adopt a very young child. And that, more, in my way of thinking, I would think that would be available and be known. I can't think of too many cases where you would actually come up and need it, but I can see there could be some. But what do you think about that?
I think it would be good to have a medical history, but as you say, there's things that you don't need it for, and everything. And what advice would you give me on if the child was acting up and hitting other kids and stuff? And since we don't know the medical history, would you say they'd grow out of it, or would you say to talk to a professional to see maybe if they do need help?
Well, in that case, I would say the child need to be disciplined and taught that it's not supposed to do things like that. I mean,
I know, but
my way of thinking and my way of raising a child is that you teach that child right from wrong, and you expect respect from that child, and that it should treat people the way it's expected to be treated, and that it's got to learn that the child itself's got to learn that it's not supposed to do things like that. I mean, you need to start that from early up. And if you've got another parent or someone, the actual birth parent of that child, maybe saying something or saying that you shouldn't be doing this or shouldn't be doing that, and that child hears that, or that child gets mad at you because you maybe took a toy away from it or something like that because it wasn't doing what it was supposed to be doing as a lesson for it to learn something, then what would happen when the birth parents says, well, he should have got to keep that, so you're actually going to be, that child's going to be torn between you as an adoptive parent and its actual birth parent if it knows that while it's growing up, and that could create major problems in my way of thinking. I don't know. It's just something you need to consider very strongly before you adopt, and think about and actually talk about with me and several other people, and see what they think, and maybe discuss it with some more people that have actually adopted. Would you think that would be a good idea?
Yes. If it wasn't an open adoption and I'd adopted an older child, say 6 or 7, and they started acting up like that, if you took something away from them, they would feel like the foster parents or somebody took something away from them and then punished them, hit them, where they shouldn't, not just spank them, but hit them, physically abuse them. What would you think about that?
Well, it's a closed adoption. You're talking about a foster parent or whatever that would have been doing that.
Yeah.
As long as you're showing that child love and you're loving that child, you're treating that child decent, you're not abusing that child. When you do correct them on something, they know you're doing it out of love, not because you're upset, you're just getting paid to take care of and this and that. I mean, you've actually adopted that child. And they will learn real quick how much you care for them. And they will know that you're going to be their parent and you're going to be there for them no matter what. Even though they've done something that they know they shouldn't do and you punish them for that particular something, you take their iPad away from them or their iPhone or whatever you may have given them, a toy, a game, computer game, whatever, and you don't allow them to use that for 2 or 3 days because of something they did wrong, they're still going to know you love them. You're still going to know you're going to be there. It's not like, hey, I'm going to dump you off on somebody else. I don't like what you're doing. No, that's not what's going to happen. And they'll learn that pretty quick, and I think they'll actually react to that. Just like your birth, if you were the birth parent of that child raising it, wouldn't you think?
Yeah.
Okay. So, like I say, in a closed adoption, especially with a younger child, a baby, anyway, from 18 to from birth to 18 months, you're going to be the only parent that child knows. It's going to know your love, going to know that you care for it, and in my opinion, that would be more important than it knowing its birth parents at that point. Sure, after it reaches, 15, 16, 17-year-old, they may have questions, but every adopted child has questions, and they're going to have questions. If you treated that child with love and raised it with love, I don't see where it's going to be a major problem. That child's always going to love you. Just like, I'm one of your birth parents, and I always love you, even though I get aggravated at you sometimes, and you get aggravated at me. We still love each other,
Yeah.
and we always will. That's the way it's also going to be with adopting. Going to be no different, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, like Tony and Janice.
Mm-hmm.
Tony's my cousin. Janice is his wife. They adopted a little boy. I can't think of his name right now. He's about 4 years old, I think, and he's so attached to Tony. If I didn't know them, I think it was really his son. The way they're attached to each other.
Well, wouldn't you say it really is his son, since he's adopted that child?
Since it's really his son. But
exactly. And he's raising it.
They don't seem to have any problems and
right.
stuff, which I know there are some adopted families that do have problems with kids hoarding food, and because they hadn't got enough to eat and stuff. But after a while, they learn that they're gonna get enough to eat and stuff, and the parents of them, they need to know, if the doctors say the child's overweight, that if it's a 4 or 5 or 6-year-old, or even a 9 or 10-year-old, they're still growing, and they're going to need more food than what the doctor may think sometimes, especially if they're adopted. They might.
Sometimes that's possible, but then again, that's as they get older, that's something you need to discuss with them. Mm-hmm. That they need to stay active, need to be exercised, don't need to sit around and just eat a lot. They need to keep
I'm talking about the ones that are exercising and stuff, and there's some look different from another child.
Sure.
And yeah.
Sure. But see, you can sit down and discuss that with a child too.
Yeah.
So you're just like if you were that birth parent, it's your responsibility. You've adopted that child, so that's your responsibility, no one else's.
I know, an off subject.
Right.
I'm nervous.
But of course. So in closing, what thoughts do you have?
What thoughts do I have? From the beginning, I love little babies. I love any age kids, but on adoption, I would probably want to adopt a older child. And I know that's harder to do open adoption on. That most of those will be closed adoptions, and that's okay with me. Either way, but I'd like to adopt a somewhere between 5 and 9 year old little girl.
Okay, so you don't like sitting up at night with babies, huh?
I love babies.
Hey, I had to go through that. You should too now. Wait a minute. Okay, then.
There's a lot of people that want to adopt babies and stuff.
Okay.
And sometimes the older children don't get picked that much. They're more and more is getting picked and stuff. So that's why.
Okay.
And thank you, everyone. And I know this went off topic some a little bit through the thing, but I'm sorry. Thank you.